awesome. Thank you everyone so much for being here. I guess to go for some introductions, I'm Phil McMannis, co-founder and CEO of Beacon Protocol. We are developing on-chain orchestration of data for AI and solving the challenges around making private data safely accessible for AI. Veronica, you want to do an intro?
Cool, yeah. My name's Veronica. I lead BD at Eclipse that Beacon is built on. We are a Solana virtual machine roll-up on ETH. So left curve kind of explanation is Solana on ETH. Think the same developer experience as Solana, fast transactions, cheap fees, but now tapping into the ETH user base and liquidity. Yeah.
Awesome. And today we're going to be talking about the Eclipse Data Hub, which we just announced this last week, and digging a little more into what's there. So, if you haven't seen or if you're not are aware of this, we've essentially exhausted all of the public data that's out there for AI. So as you look at a lot of the foundational models that are being used, they've been trained on the information that's scrapable online, the stuff that you and I can all see every day. And where things are starting to go with data and AI is starting to focus on public data sources. So that's really where we've dug in. But at the same time, a lot of the market leaders, right, as we look at, all of the AI companies out there like OpenAI, Anthropic, right, Meta, they haven't done a good job of compensating users for data that was put into their models. So this is one of my favorite memes about this, right, is if I've seen it, it's the, step one, do something, step two, step three, profit. That's effectively what's going on, and that needs to be changed because that question mark in the middle needs more definition when it comes to our data as users and how it's being consumed. So that's why we have built the Beacon Data Hub. So we'll take a few minutes to talk about this now, but the ultimate idea is that there's all of these different sources of data, and we've partnered with Eclipse to be able to bring those together into a data marketplace where we're able to leverage co-processors for data privacy and make that data consumable by AI projects. And as we announced this week, our first partners with that are Demo, which for those who aren't familiar with Demo is a DPIN protocol to make it possible for you to take ownership of your vehicle data, and then Allura as well. So Allura is building self-training AI models and making it possible for you to build models that can learn, and they're highly interested in being able to get access to that private data, because how are you going to compete unless you have better fuel for the engines you're building? So, I want to pause here and, get Veronica, your take. This is, one of the things that you very much had a lot of the idea of as we look at what's happening in the space, and we'd just love to get your take on, how you start to think about data and AI and how this all fits together, especially from a Web3 protocol level.
Cool. Yeah, I think, I had this idea a couple of months ago where first I saw the statistic that, in crypto right now, there's less developers than developers at Meta, right? So when you think about that from kind of a first principles angle, there's so little developers. So when you're building a dApp, right, there's a high chance that it's small. And especially if you're building something in the realm of data or DeepIn currently, it's really hard to be able to offload that data to, a bigger players like an OpenAI or, anybody in that realm. They won't necessarily be wanting to interact with small projects compared to, the traditional Web2 AI gathering, data scraping companies, right? They have a deal where they have like so much data that they're willing to provide. So I think for us, right, we wanted to kind of lean on the blockchain aspects, which I think, Phil, you'll touch upon. But, there is a way where you can kind of lean on the network effects of an actual blockchain and be able to aggregate, there's a couple of different projects. Maybe we're able to better standardize the process, right? Understand that all of these projects are providing the same type of data, package it together, and then end up selling it to one of these like big vendors, right? So this is kind of the angle we wanted to explore, where we are working with Beacon Protocol to better aggregate different sources of data and more efficiently sell that to different types of provider. And I think short term, we're thinking about AI data, since AI is kind of like the hot topic right now. This is where a lot of the data is ingested. But long term, we'd like to streamline the flow of different types of data, whether it is, health data or even, niche data that is very hard for, vendors to access.
Yeah, and I think let's take a minute to talk a little bit more about the data aggregation component, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges to solve with data in Web3 right now. the idea of ownership of your data and monetizing your data in Web3 is not new. But I think one of the things that's been challenging as we look at a lot of projects that we've seen do this before is that they take this approach of, own your own data as a consumer and make a, whether you call it a consumer data backpack, right? And at the end of the day, that's pretty time consuming. And let's all be honest, we're all consumers. We're all lazy. No one wants to go through the additional steps. We're still working on solving challenges of making, solid Web3 UI sign-ins, right, and wallet access. And then once you've gone through all that, you're going to go through the process of sort of controlling your own data as well. And that's why our focus has been on how do we enable a DApp, a DPIN, a protocol that has valuable off-chain data to be able to gain agency and mobilize all of their users' data in a way that becomes traceable, becomes monetizable, and also redistributes the economic supply chain of how that happens as well, right? And I think, Veronica, it'd be great if you could talk about specifically that, DApp and DPIN angle and how a lot of the conversations that you're having there have been building out.
Yeah, I think one thing as well to kind of mention, right, is a lot of current Web3 products don't have the same kind of UX, UI flow as Web2 products. And something that's like data, right, where I would say most of the users will end up being, maybe Web 2.5 or just, normal people that are just looking to monetize their data. They have to find somewhere that has kind of the same experience as something that they're used to. And that's something that people are working on at the moment. And with Eclipse, right, I think that's something I didn't touch upon. Whilst being able to leverage something like, the SVM, right? We keep fees low, and the UX, we're working on it so that it's really similar to what's available from like a Web 2 angle. Because I think, as I talk to different types of projects, that's something that rises, right? Like, hey, I have this really interesting product, but like, it's very hard for me to pitch it to normal users, right? Let's say I want users to be able to put this camera in their car and be able to, take pictures so that instead of selling it to Google Maps, you get more money through us. But I think to them, right, it's really hard to understand kind of like the blockchain component. The UX is just not good right now. So that's one thing that's been brought up that we're looking to solve. And I think in general, right, a lot of projects are actually getting a lot of data, but they're having a hard time, standardizing it, selling it, right? I think a lot of things have been built out, and there's been a lot of research being done around privacy, consent, right? A lot of projects using ZK proofs, et cetera. But like when you bring this data to, let's say, like a car insurer, like a State Farm, right? They have no idea how to like deal with this data. They're like, what are ZK proofs? Even if they have somebody that's kind of crypto savvy or even like a full-time crypto hire, it's really hard right now for them to be able to unpack all of this data because a lot of things have been built out by crypto native founders. And at the end of the day, like the vendors are not crypto native. So I think that's something that, we're looking to solve and work on.
Yeah, and I want to take a minute to talk about how, we think about the economics as well, right? Because I think incentive is such a big challenge in this space, right, that we need to figure out how to solve. And I sort of like to draw some parallels sometimes to if we think about what I personally consider to be one of the most overhyped and least delivered on possibilities of blockchain, which is supply chain of physical goods, right? It was blockchain's going to transform supply chain. Look, at the end of the day, we have some sort of semblance of where things have been going, right? When you look at a physical good, if, for example, let's say that UPS had a model where every distribution center that touches that package, right, gets a proportional piece of the cost of that delivery, right? I can look at my tracking history, see all the hubs that it hit, right? Where did it go through? And you could figure out how to distribute that. That does not exist with data today. Your data goes somewhere, it is copied, you have no control over it, there's no provenance, and that's where we focused on using data provenance to understand where data's come from, where it's being used, and starting to think about it as a data supply chain as well, right, and being able to compensate for that supply chain. So that's why we've built things for the Eclipse Data Hub in a way that the economics can be shared, not just with the users who are producing that data, who should and will be the ones to receive the lion's share of the value of the data monetization, but also being able to have incentive for the dApps apps and the deep pin protocols to be able to take the time to build it in a way that's responsible and to be able to incentivize their users as well to participate. And then as well, the markets, the protocols, and the AI consumers that are building that as well. So, Veronica, take a minute to talk a little bit about how we've chatted about how that's really going to be a game changer as we look at, transforming incentivization of data for AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple interesting angles here, right? Like, definitely we're looking to better incentivize our users, right? Figure out what's the way for a user to be happy, whether it is being able to kind of reuse that data, sell it to multiple vendors, right? Or even thinking around, like, maybe there's a home screen where you didn't even know that some of the data that was being collected could also be sold, right? I think there's kind of the transparency angle with blockchains, right? Like, now like, hey, I have, my health data being sold, I have, my car data being sold, and all of these things are available, right? And you didn't know that there were sellers, right? So I think there's also kind of this bit around, like, ecosystem connecting, and we are, at the end of the day, users first, right? We want to reward the users instead of us making money. Ourselves, I think, aren't even making money, right? The idea around this was more so around, like, how can I build some application or a hub that would really reward users versus, building another type of product that won't necessarily hit mass adoption, right? We could work around building something really complex within, like, the DeFi realm, but we wanted to build something where we're thinking about traditional users, bringing in new users, really enabling them to better understand where their data is going. And at the end of the day, right, like, data is so hot right now. So many people are building through AI, through LLM models, but need more data. So I mean, yeah, we're hoping to kind of use our network and really push that and better reward users.
Awesome. So let's take a minute to talk about Eclipse, because that's really one of the core pieces that makes this work in a way that's very unique. And as much as this is about data across any network and being able to leverage Eclipse to make that possible, as we take a look at some of the core things that have been made available, it's really about the speed and scale of SVM, right? Why the Solana virtual machine becomes such an important piece of it, but also the data availability that's baked in with Celestia, because let's be honest, on-chain data is very expensive. It's probably the most expensive storage in the world. So as you look at even data transactions, right, it adds up very quickly, and also being able to leverage the liquidity of Ethereum. So, Veronica, I want to turn it over to you for a couple minutes to talk about some of the awesome developments that have been going on at Eclipse that's powering this, not just for Beacon Protocol and the Data Hub, but everyone else on the Eclipse network as well, because such an amazing ecosystem building out.
Yeah, I feel like you always do such a good job pitching Eclipse.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, I think we are going live at the end of this month, but the idea was really combining the best kind of tech stack possible within crypto, right? And for us at the execution level, it is Solana with the SVM, right? It is parallel execution, local fee markets, all of the above, where we think it will be the closest experience to what's available for, Web2 users. At the end of the day, I personally am really focused on mass adoption again, right? I don't think any user wants to pay like $35 gas fee for doing something, right? They won't understand. They'll say, like, even credit card fees aren't this high. Like, why am I doing this, right? So we really wanted to mimic that experience, make it fast, cheap, as similar as, traditional Web2 experience, but also tap into, the security of Ethereum and also, the current crypto user base where, a lot of, non-native assets, most of them are still in Ethereum. A lot of users are there comparable to Solana, but different user base, right? And, Celestia as DA, right, as a data availability layer, actually enables us to make fees incredibly cheap. We currently are on a mainnet for developers, but currently the fees are, I think, about like a fifth of what is of the fees on Solana. So yeah,
which are already super low to begin with, right? So Solana conference, it's Solana but cheaper than Solana. Like, that's a fifth is crazy.
Well, yeah, we're working on that, and I think these are all the things we're working with. We're working on long term, right? Thinking about different, like new models on the SVM, right? But yeah, I think long term for me personally, right, working to make this experience as seamless for, traditional normie users coming into crypto.
So I guess, separate from where Eclipse is at right now, I'll give you a little bit tougher question. Where do you see Eclipse, 1-2 years from now as adoption continues to grow? Because the ecosystem growth, even over the last couple months, has been explosive. For anyone who hasn't checked it out, definitely go check out the Eclipse Twitter. There is an army of an amazing ecosystem that is all about what's happening. But, where do you see things going from here as we look 12, 24 months out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I see it, right, long term, for crypto to be really successful, something like blockchain infrastructure has to take a step back in the sense that we want to highlight dApps, right? We are looking to build the place that's the best for dApps. And I think, thinking around blockchains, right? I think right now, right, people are always like, oh, I'm building on Solana, I'm building on Eclipse, I'm building on ETH mainnet, right? At the end of the day, right, a couple months down, I'd like people to just kind of highlight dApps that are built on Eclipse because we are providing the right space and environment for that. And I think I'm personally really excited to see a lot of novel use cases that are going to be built around Eclipse now that we're giving kind of the freedom to build anything you want, right? There's no tech constraints, right? We have a really good ecosystem support, but I think, yeah, that's the idea, right? Not to have us as much in the spotlight, but more so dApps that are built on us.
Awesome. So we've got just a few minutes left here at the end, so wanted to open it up for questions from the crowd. Anyone have any questions? You can use mine as the runner.
So what dApps do you have currently on the Eclipse system, and what would you hope to see in the future?
So we are a general purpose chain, so I think we have kind of a mix of DeFi and consumer, and given the way our architecture is currently built out, being, nearly the same, comparable as Solana, right? We have a lot of Solana DeFi dApps coming over. Think, Mango, Orca, Solend, and on consumer, right, we have NFT launchpads, wearables coming over, SocialFi gaming. But I think the way we see it, right, is we are at a really unique intersection between Ethereum and Solana. So in terms of things we're ideating on wanting to kind of really support, we currently are building out, for instance, an LRT hub. So we're building out a unified LRT hub where we are currently partnered with a lot of different LRTs on ETH and bringing EtherFi, Puffer, Swell, and their kind of LRT base onto Eclipse, thinking about this long term as kind of a cross-chain hub. So we're talking with a lot of Sol LRTs to bring those over, Bitcoin LRTs. So that's kind of a space that we'd like to ideate on at the moment. And I think me personally, kind of leading consumer, right, I'm really excited around, novel use cases around meme coins. I think, for better or for worse, I love meme coins, and I think it is a really good way to bring in people. I think a lot of my friends, right, don't necessarily interact with DeFi, but they message me and they're like, oh, I bought this thing called Popcat, and in my mind, where did they find this information, right? So I think at the end of the day, those build culture, those kind of build what we need to bring additional people in. So yeah, I'd like to see things ideated around there because I think, we had the V1, right? We had the bonding curve launch pads. I want to see, different types of fair launches, community-driven tokens, that kind of stuff. I personally am a gamer. I'd love to see, on-chain games, things that actually work is not the right term. I think current blockchain infrastructure is running into a couple constraints where I've played a lot of games where, the UX is just not good. But thinking around how to best abstract away the chain and actually build something that's comparable to Web 2. And I think we're getting there. I think there's a lot of stuff on Solana that's being built. I think Off the Grid on AVAX is actually a really good example right now. Super hot game, right? But yeah, I think those are kind of the angles we'd love to see. But yeah, super open to seeing how the space grows as well.
With the Eclipse Data Hub, if I'm contributing data, will you also support the right to be forgotten if I want to remove my data? And if so, what are the implications for the AI that might be using that data?
Chris, that is a killer question. So the short answer to that is yes. And I think one of the things that I would encourage any DApp or DPIN that is out there, that they are looking at how they handle consumer data from a data privacy law perspective, because just because you make something anonymous by tying it to a wallet does not change those things, right? Opt-in, consent, right to be forgotten, yes. So the answer is yes. There's a couple different ways that can be done. It can be done from on-chain conditions, can also be done by burning keys, right? So that's one of the amazing things about encryption is that if you burn that encryption key, that data can never be accessed again until, I guess there's some arguments that maybe once quantum, right, learns to crack things. But I'm sorry, when we get to quantum, there's way bigger problems than any of our consumer data at this point. So the answer is yes. And then in terms of on the consumption side, we have a model where we're able to separate private from non-private data. And we're also partnering with Zama for fully homomorphic encryption computation on ML and RISC-0 for ZKML as well. So beyond that, we're also leveraging some of those very awesome projects out there that are letting those amazing data privacy and compute on encrypted data capable. So awesome. Looks like we're at time. Thank you everyone so much.